Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for my review of Miss Kuroitsu from the Monster Development Department, Episode 1. She cried inside when the monster to strike fear into the hearts of men was born into the evil secret society plotting world domination. So we start off with like a gathering of evil villains being led by what I could only call a Moe Rita Repulsa, who runs an evil organization called Agastia. Warning, if you haven't seen the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you probably won't get many of the references I'm making in this episode. But you could replace them with your Monster of the Week or Super Sentai or Kamen Rider or whatever reference of choice. Anyway, one of her monsters is like giving a presentation about their competing evil corporations and how they're all being done in by their associated Super Sentai teams. And one thing that's really cool is that all of the superhero characters they show are actually from like other series. Anyway, Agastia is like this evil organization similar to something you would see like in a Super Sentai or a Kamen Rider or some, Monster of the Week show, but it's run like a corporation. So rather than have like Finster, they have an R&D department with some laboratory nerds who like create all their different monsters. And, of these nerds, one of whom is Miss Kuroitsu, presumably the main character of the show, has to like present their monster proposals to a boardroom of the evil villains. But they also have to deal with like budgets and deadlines and like all this kind of other stuff. Unfortunately, the R&D group slacked off and they kind of like slapped together this like really lame looking Loch Ness monster costume with like a sword, but you could like see the face of the person wearing the costume like sticking out. And then Miss Kuroitsu has to like fake her way through this presentation and like try to make it be like serious. And she almost convinces them all, but a bunch of the board execs like aren't buying it and then basically gets rejected. So then one of the big baddies, this guy like Megistus, he visits the R&D group and he kind of calls them out for their like poor presentation. But instead of sort of like getting angry and like punishing them, he's like super understanding and he's like, oh, I think you guys need a better work environment. And I see that, you haven't been taking time off and stuff like that. Agastia has an HR group that he consulted with, so he kind of has this information about them. So then they take, like whatever, a day or two off, and then they make this like super powerful like wolf boy. But then the Moe Rita Repulsa kind of comes by and she changes it from this like super buff wolf monster into this like cute little girl wolf. So then this ties us back into like the subplot that's kind of run earlier in the episode that eventually intertwines with the main plot, where Miss Kuroitsu constantly frequents this like lunch restaurant and is always talking to this employee who kind of like has a crush on her. But it winds up that he's actually the civilian identity of Agastia's nemesis, named Divine Swordsman Blader, who is more of kind of like a Kamen Rider type. I don't think this is. I think that this hero was created just for this show, unlike the ones that they mentioned earlier. And he basically goes to fight the wolf girl, but he's distracted by kind of her, let's say, feminine features. But then the wolf girl retreats due to some issue with her armor, and then the episode ends. So I really enjoyed the first episode. It's kind of, multiple layers of parody. I think anyone who's once watched a Monster of the Week show kind of gets the joke of the struggle to kind of create this new monster for the superhero to fight, and the constant embarrassment that comes with the failure of defeating the hero time after time. I think putting that responsibility onto sort of like a regular salary man, or in this case, a salary woman, does create like a really interesting plot. And obviously just having these like evil looking monsters in the boardroom, like being bored and playing on their phone and kind of applying corporate decision making to create a kaiju is pretty great visual. And then of course having this like super mean evil looking guy is actually like super concerned about the well-being of his employees, rather than the typical evil scientist who's just constantly like punishing and torturing their minions for failure is hilarious. So this is a great show. I'm really looking forward to the next episode, and I would certainly recommend watching it, at least episode 1, which just on its own stands out as being excellent. It's possible the show could get repetitive week after week, which would kind of be a parody in and of itself of a Monster of the Week show, especially if they kind of keep rehashing the same jokes over and over again. But I think, but hopefully they can get into some other aspects of Agastia's run, like a corporation, compared to other supervillains, which I think will make for a really interesting show. Anyway, thanks so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe. And if you didn't, tell me about it in the comments. I do weekly anime reviews and figure reviews on Wednesday. I also do a review of another new anime that debuted this season, Dolls Frontline, episode 1, so make sure to check that video out as well. And please join me for Wednesday's figure review episode, where I'll be taking a look at Getter Arc from the anime Getter Robo Arc. Thanks so much, and keep collecting.